Eran, Grabiner, CEO of Spotinst Cloud, who is here to talk about infrastructure, use cases, and video advertising.
I'm Eran, COO of Spotinst. Thanks. So what I'm going to speak about today is major trends in the public cloud industry, and essentially how does it affect your business, and how can you save more money and increase your profit margins when you're managing your infrastructure better. So I want to start from, let's see. All right, I want to start from a few key facts about the public cloud industry and the MarTech, AdTech industry. So first of all, we are seeing in the last few years that companies are spending a lot. Even mid-sized companies are spending more than $500,000 a month on their cloud computing. Those numbers are enormous, and actually, in a common AdTech, MarTech company, this is probably one of the top 5 expenses that you can see. So this is really affecting your business. Secondly, the amount that companies are spending is rising. You're just spending more and more, you're consuming more. The cloud providers and also some graphs later are earning more money, and those numbers are just increasing year over year. Another interesting thing, this usage is very seasonally. It's not something that is straight or constant. You are changing your usage all the time. There are huge spikes, different times of the day, different periods of the year, different changes like holidays and so on. And the last most important thing is it really affects your margin profits, because usually with a business, it is compute infrastructure, but there isn't a real connection between how big is the business and the compute infrastructure. With AdTech, MarTech companies, as you are selling more products, and as you have more impressions, as you have more ads, you are, by definition, increasing and enlarging your infrastructure. Meaning that if you are paying less on your infrastructure, you are increasing your profit margins by design. So this graph is only to show you how much the cloud providers are earning. This is like how much the big cloud providers are earning in any quarter in the last few years. This is increasing quarter after quarter. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they are increasing their margins. We are spending more and more on our cloud infrastructure, and it's just getting bigger. Your industry, the AdTech and MarTech industry, is a huge part, a huge chunk out of it. This industry is growing year over year and has more compute power with video, with impressions, and so on. So you're just spending more. I really like this quote to emphasize how big is the public cloud industry and how fast it is growing. This is a quote from the VP Engineering of AWS. He says that every day, Amazon adds enough capacity of new servers to support all of Amazon global infrastructure. That means that every day they are onboarding a Fortune 500 company to their data centers. Those numbers are amazing. And eventually, the reason they have to do so is that they have to support the highest peak of the years. Look at Cyber Monday, Black Friday, how much compute all of the world is pushing, all of your industry with ads and so on. And they have to support these highest peaks. But most of the time, their infrastructure is just sitting there, it does nothing. Actually, more than 43% of the compute capacity of a big cloud provider like AWS, like Amazon, like Google, is usually unused. Maybe during Black Friday, they are using most of their capacity, but most of the time, they just have spare capacity sits there. And you're probably asking yourself, all right, there is spare capacity, what the hell I can do with it? So the cloud providers are offering us this spare capacity with 2 basic rules. First of all, it is extremely cheap. It's like 80–90% cheaper than a regular infrastructure. But the second rule is that you have no guarantee for availability. If you spin up a server that is spare capacity, in 2 minutes notice, Amazon can take this server away from you. You don't have a guarantee, but it's really cheap. So what can we do with it? Examples from your industry, all of those kind of infrastructure servers, like ad servers, RTB bidders, and so on, those kind of workloads, think about it, they are just bursting in a very short amount of time, like 200 milliseconds, with a lot of impressions coming in, a lot of bidding coming in. And in this small period of time, when you are spending a lot of money on your compute cycles, we can do a lot. You have 2 minutes notice before we are terminating a machine. So if you would have a platform that allows you to do that automatically, you would be able to run all of those infrastructure building blocks on top of cloud provider spare capacity. And this is essentially what we are doing in Spotinst. But I want to take a zoom out and to look at this infrastructure from above of this industry and look at what's going on in the last few years. So in the last 20 years, amazing things happened in the computing industry, in the cloud industry. We started from bare metal servers 20 years ago, sitting idle in our offices. It was very expensive. It was very complicated to build production environment out of it. You couldn't scale out of it. You probably won't have all this amazing industry of ad tech and marketing tech with those kind of infrastructure. And we moved to virtualization and the public cloud that essentially changed everything and helped us to do all these amazing things that we are doing in the last few years. And in the last 3-5 years, we've been introduced even to containers, which is more abstract level of how you use your compute and how you can do it more efficiently. And essentially, this vector is taking us to the next step in computing, which is functions. I'll try to explain it in like 30 seconds. Basically, you can take your application, spread it apart to just small functions, and you can take each function and just put it in the cloud and ask the cloud to run this function and just get your answer back. So you don't need to have a server, you don't need to have an infrastructure to nurture, you don't have to have all of that. You can just put functions out there, like a URL address, like an API call, and whenever you need to run this cycle of compute, whenever you need to run a bid on an ad, you can just hit a function. If you want to do it 100 times a second, all right. If you want to do it 1 million times a second, all right. You don't need to even care about scale and so on. What's amazing about it is, first of all, it's way cheaper because you are paying only for the compute cycle that you are actually doing. Think about, metaphorically, think about a website that the website owner is paying for the website only if users are actually entering the website. Because all of his compute infrastructure is being built only when there is actual call to the functions that are out there. So it's way cheaper. The developer teams has much more power because they don't have to deal with servers and infrastructure. They just write 3 pieces of code, uploading it to the cloud, and just hit the functions and move on. I think that in the ad tech and market industry, we already see that. We see the high usage of serverless infrastructure and how much they can save. One of the biggest problems that we are seeing with that is actually networking prices, because you guys are transferring a lot of load from different locations for every impression. You have so much information going in. And the cloud providers are charging you for every megabyte that you are transferring through the cloud. So think about the promise of serverless. If everything is just functions that sits there and you don't have any infrastructure, for the first time in the history, you can really think about having your infrastructure multi-cloud. If it's just a function, why do you care if you are running with AWS or Microsoft or Google? It can be anyone. So think about the next generation of computing like a platform where you are just uploading your function and someone automatically chooses for you the best place to run your function. It can be the most efficient one, it can be the less expensive one, you can save over networking or compute, whatever you want, everything automatically. And things like you are doing with real-time bidding over ads, you can do the same real-time bidding over compute cycles. So to summarize that, eventually in the future we see, people will keep on using virtual machines and containers, and functions will take a bigger part of the industry, but eventually people will keep on using everything. There are many ways how to increase your profit margins by cutting your cloud costs. We are working with most of the edtech companies in Israel, cutting their compute cost in 70 to 80%. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars each month. And with each one of those ways to manage compute, you can save a lot of money if it's with leveraging spare capacity, if it's with being able not to be vendor locked to run your function anywhere, wherever you are choosing. There are many ways to do that. I'll be here afterwards. You can come by and ask questions. As I mentioned, we are working with most of the edtech companies in Israel, and we really like to help more companies to save money over their cloud costs. Thank you very much.